Do you think this was a Trump inside job, as some are suggesting?
If you're out there and you believe that, I'm really good with a rifle, but I know people that are better than me that could do this as well. If you believe that happened, I want you to come to Austin and hold an apple next to your ear. I'll go 150 meters away, and you just stand there, don't move, and let me shoot.
Why was Trump's security detail a bunch of 5'5" fat women? How are 5'5" fat women supposed to protect the 6'3" man?
Everyone's a victim!
Now we're 48 hours removed from an assassination attempt, and it seems like everybody's completely over it. They're actually protesting outside of the RNC up in Milwaukee right now. There are droves of baristas out there with their Gazan flags. The Palestinian peoples of Milwaukee are out there saying, no Trump, no fascism, no KKK. J.D. Vance, the hillbilly eulogist himself, has been named vice president of the Trump ticket. And AOC says that anybody who doesn't agree with her should retire. Otherwise, they're a fascist. But first, we have an incredible guest, one of my favorite people, Dan Hollaway from the Drinking Bros podcast, a veteran of our sweet and sour armed forces, is going to break down exactly what went wrong during Trump's speech from a tactical standpoint. The great Dan Hollaway of the Drinking Bros joins us. Dan Hollaway, ladies and gentlemen, what's up, Dan?
Good evening, or whatever time it is, wherever you are.
Sure, it's supper time. It's about supper time. So, Dan, now you've had 48 hours to take a look at what happened. How was a 20-year-old person who was kicked out of their high school gun club able to bring both a long rifle, a ladder, get 150 yards away from the former and perhaps future president of the United States while crawling for 30 seconds? Actually, as it turns out, almost 2 minutes that people were seeing him saying, hey, there's a guy with a gun up there. And he was able to get off not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 shots, missing all but one of them barely. First, let's get this out of the way. Do you think this was a Trump inside job, as some are suggesting? Do you think this is something that the Trump campaign has come up with to try to get as much sympathy and clout as they can from surviving an assassination attempt?
Here's the question I'll posit in lieu of answering that. If you're out there and you believe that, I'm really good with a rifle, but I know people that are better than me that could do this as well. If you believe that happened, I want you to come to Austin and hold an apple next to your ear. I'll go 150 meters away, and you just stand there, don't move, and let me shoot. And if you trust me enough to do that, right, I'm a trained professional. I've been shooting for decades. Then maybe we can have that conversation. But then you have to add in the fact this is an untrained 20-year-old geek, neckbeard with probably low testosterone. So no, that's retarded, and anybody that believes it is also retarded.
That's a hell of a gambit. That's a hell of a gambit for a guy already up like 10 points in the polls to say, hey,
a 78-year-old.
I'm gonna let you take 5 shots at me, but just graze the ear,
Yeah.
1 inch this way, and it's game over. It almost makes, if it is true, it almost makes me respect Trump more that he'd be willing to go that far for the publicity.
Yeah, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, the second conspiracy theory, if you're able to debunk or not, and listen, I think conspiracy theories, if there's anything we learned from the last 5 to 10 years, you should be curious. You should demand that the powers that be, our authorities, explain what they found and why they found it. They have to show their work for at least the next 50 years to even get some sort of modicum of trust back. So I'm okay with these conspiracy theories. The other one being posited is that there was actually no shooter at all, and that it's kayfabe. Trump went down, did the old Ric Flair, did the business himself.
Sure.
And the other guy, actually, there was no other guy. No guy was shot and killed. And, I think Alex Jones was, he has $1 billion bill for saying something very similar. But MSNBC, John Cusack, Keith Olbermann, and I believe Amanda Seales seem intent that this was all kayfabe.
Yeah, oddly enough, you may see some lawsuits develop here in the very near future. I'm not saying I've heard that, but maybe that's going on right now. Yeah, that's very dumb. It's very dumb. I'm sure the guy's family. You can see the guy's bloody corpse getting dragged out off of the grandstands by Secret Service and local PD. So just a dumb thing to say. I mean, I don't have any more to say about that. That's dumb.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a tragedy. How is this able to happen, Dan? All semi jokes aside, how on earth was this guy able to get up into that vantage point, get off 5 shots before he was taken down? Why did it take 2 minutes for these people to respond? And why was Trump's security detail a bunch of 5'5" fat women? How are 5'5" fat women supposed to protect the 6'3" man? All jokes aside.
Well, equity is important.
Diversity is our strength.
Yeah. Somebody will explain that to me in a way that makes sense one day. Let's go back to the 30,000 foot view. So what happens in an event like this is sometime between, let's say, 72 hours and 2 weeks ahead of time, the advance team will show up to a place like that. This is Secret Service detail. They'll liaise with local PD. They'll do a site survey. Typically, one of them is a CS guy, a counter sniper guy. So he's going to obviously get into different hides and see where the best vantage points are. Maybe he's got an iPad or something that has a 3D layout of what the stage is going to look like when it's in there, so he can really see what's going to go like that. And some of the things you do in that period is you establish where the perimeter is going to be, like where people are allowed in and out, like where there are going to be checks, whether there's metal detectors or whatever else is going on there. Then you're going to establish again where your counter sniper hide is going to be, and you're going to go check out any place where a potential shooter might set up, to include their ingress and egress routes. That is to say, streets, roads, avenues, whatever that might lead into that position and lead out of it. That said, day of, what we found out today from ABC was that the building that the shooter shot from was actually the staging area for the local PD. That's what
that blew my mind.
Yeah,
that blew my mind.
That's the current news. So what that means, staging area, for those of you that don't know, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean that that's where their comms were set up, their comm relay, and they had a guy sitting there inside that building or near it. It could mean that that's just where they linked up earlier in the day to hand out assignments and equipment shit. So we don't know necessarily about that just yet. But that's troubling because you're going to look at every building in the area, right? You're going to look at any place that's a potential vantage point you're going to look at. You're going to look for things like ways to get on top of the building, for example. You mentioned the guy brought a ladder with him. I'm not sure that's been confirmed yet. The last I heard, that ladder may have been a permanent fixture on that building, which makes it way worse, by the way. It's at least some degree better if he brought the ladder with him. At any rate, how does it happen in general? Gross negligence is the only real solution I see for that. I mean, Hanlon's razor says don't imply malice when incompetence will suffice.
Sure.
And as of now, I don't see any evidence that there was malfeasance, unless you consider intentional incompetence malfeasance. And to be honest, I don't know that you could say that wasn't the case.
No, yeah. So let's before you move on from that, that's a very important point. And I want people to understand exactly what you're saying there, right? Like there's 2 different types of let's say insidious behavior here. There's actual dark people in a dark room, shadowy figures that are trying to come up with an overt plan to assassinate the would-be president of the United States. And then there's the more passive route where, hey, let's just hire the worst people we can and let the chips fall where they may. And I think at some point with this government, with this particular administration, and this falls under Mayorkas, the same guy who was running our border, kind of, right? At some point, you have to say, when really, really smart people, really, really powerful people do really, really dumb things and are really, really bad at their job, are they doing it on purpose?
Well,
How can somebody be this bad for this long?
Yeah, think about, well, I mean, he's got a litany of failures on his hands, to include the border crisis and the mass illegal immigration that's been happening. But let's stick with just this one topic today for brevity's sake. Imagine an NFL coach, right? tank for Tua. I think that's a phrase that'll probably ring out for people that are fans of football. Intentionally losing. How do you intentionally lose football games without making it obvious? Well, you don't hand the ball off or throw it to your best players, right?
Yeah.
Or you put or you trump up some reason to get them out of the way, suspend them, or fake an injury. It's happened.
You don't sign them. You don't sign. You literally don't sign the best players because you don't want the best team.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, and then you can use your own imagination to understand how this happens with security details as well. I mean, there's absolutely no reason that these women should have been on that detail. Like honestly. And
I believe there was news came out today as well, Dan, that the normal security detail for the former president was pulled away for an event for Jill Biden that same day.
Yeah, I heard that. I haven't confirmed that yet, but I've heard that as well, which is a monumental disaster. And the second part of that story is that HSI, Homeland Security Investigation, which is part of DHS, it's part of ICE actually through DHS as well. So it's also a DHS organization, but they do investigations. Think of them as the FBI for Homeland Security, for immigration.
NCIS,
especially.
Homeland Security.
Yeah, so I mean something like that. So and then they relied entirely too much on local PD as well. So here's the thing, man. An advanced team is going to identify any potential threat. And the last thing we've heard this morning from I believe it was also ABC News said that Secret Service had relayed that they identified that building as a point of interest, as a problem area, right?
Yeah, and the local police, they're blaming the local police in what seems like a grotesque effort to save their ass.
Right. So if you're the lead agency, it's your job. There's a phrase called "the buck stops here." If you're Secret Service and you're blaming local police, you're fucked. I mean, you've really screwed the pooch at that point. But here's how here's how a normal human being that actually knows how to do their job would handle that. At minimum, you put a person on that building, not on the roof necessarily, but there's somebody walking in circles around that building, like a cop with a gun. Even if it's a mall cop, it doesn't even matter. Some kind of security guard or something. If you have to augment with private security, you get somebody on that building that will immediately
deterrent,
know.
at least.
Yeah. The best case scenario is that you have a shooter on the building blocking it out, or you have somebody with a gun pointed directly at that rooftop, which probably wasn't the case. So it was kind of a compact area. This isn't the best place to secure, to be honest. You're kind of sitting in a bowl with some buildings around you, and a lot of them are flat but sloped terrain. So it's not the easiest place to secure. But this is stuff that they deal with all the time. There's no excuse for that shit. So at very least, you would have had somebody there. And you spoke about the 2 minutes that civilians there were trying to flag down police or somebody to let them know there was a dude with a rifle on top of that building. Here's one of the problems that Homeland Security in general, FBI, et cetera, deal with on a pretty regular basis. This is actually the standard and not this is the rule and not the exception. You show up to a scene like that with local PD or state police or whoever it is, and everybody's got a different type of radio. Everybody's on a different channel. Everybody uses different phonetic alphabets. There's the American one and there's the NATO one, right? Which most of the federal government uses. So everybody's speaking a different language on a different channel on a different device, and it takes some time to relay that stuff. And it's, to me, that is a failure. It's 2024. There's no reason we should still be doing that shit. So I'm just trying to give the benefit of the doubt to these people. There's a delay. I mean, you can remember from Black Hawk Down with the guy in the helicopter and ISR calling down routes to Danny McMaster, Colonel McMaster. It's like, yeah, there's a delay from getting information from the talk to delivering to you. And that's how it goes. So usually the way you defeat this is you either give different people on different teams, you swap radios or something like that, or you co-locate, you put a Secret Service person and a local PD person that are supervisors in the same location so they can talk to each other from their communicative teams on their radio channels. None of that seems to have happened in the way that it should have, because the delay would never be 2 minutes. The delay would never be 2 minutes. Now, on to the guy on the roof. If I'm the cop, and they would have been instructed, if Secret Service did their job, they would have been instructed to do this. If I'm the cop and multiple civilians come up and say, hey, there's a guy with a gun on that roof right there. I know that that's a problem area. It's got line of sight to the grandstand and the stage. So the first thing I do is get on my radio. Hey, we got a shooter. Get POTUS out of there. The near team collapses on POTUS, gets him off the stage, and that's the end of it. The kid probably doesn't even take a shot at that point because he knows there's nothing to shoot at. That didn't happen for 2 minutes. That is insane to me. Like that. That is a negligence and incompetence that I don't personally understand. I've been in a couple of serious situations in my life, and sometimes people panic and stuff. But what the fuck? I mean, that is completely unacceptable. So
your history in combat has been well documented. I'm not going to go deep into it if you don't want to, but you've been in firefights. You've been in situations of multiple hazard and situations where shit's gone left, right? And with other professionally trained people. The Secret Service is supposed to be the best of the best in human protection in the world. We had Alex Witt, Battle Bars, you know him as well. We were talking about the Afghanistan withdrawal. And we had Ian from Battle Bars as well. Fantastic dude, still in military intelligence, talking about how many different levels of failure that were. And a lot of them came down to the bureaucratic communication you're talking about. But it just seems, I don't want this to turn into like a Democrat bashing thing, but this administration is like the gang that can't shoot straight. Everything that we do, it doesn't matter if it's Afghan withdrawal. It doesn't matter if it's our proxy wars. It doesn't matter if it's a freaking trying to put a dock up at Gaza, $21 million the last 3 days, or $200 million the last 3 days. We can't. The Secret Service doesn't work. The border doesn't work. Our Afghan withdrawals don't work. At what point do our enemies start looking at this and going, "Hey, man, this is a rusty ship. Like this, the eagle is, the eagle's got no clothes." I'm looking at this from the outside looking in saying, man, I got to tell you, this is, to me, I think it was you quoted it, I think, and it was really great. And it was like, this level of incompetence is going to breed aggression. We have 100 years of foreign policy based on one concept: mutually assured destruction. Everything that we've done, all of our empire building that we've done for a century, us dropping our balls on the table and flexing on every freaking country in the world has come down to fuck around and find out. And now people are starting to fuck around, and they're not really finding out. And I think that that's a really dangerous thing for us here at home. I think that that's something where we're looking at, guys like Putin saying, not only are we going to put warships around Cuba, but we're going to put ICBMs in Mexico. Yeah. And should we be looking at this as a situation like our guys have this under control, or is this a red flag to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge red flag. So probably the worst thing that happened yesterday is that America's enemies saw what's supposed to be the most elite protection detail on Earth get defeated by a 20-year-old child with no training. And the quote is, "Weakness invites aggression." And that is absolutely true. So if you want to look back through history a little bit, let's talk about Putin and Ukraine a little bit. When George W. Bush was president, he was a feckless, incompetent turd that had us stretched beyond our means in places that we shouldn't have been. So what does Putin do? He knows he's weak, right?
But they were mean to his daddy, though. Have you considered that?
Yeah. But what happened? Putin invades Georgia, and we're dealing with the fallout from that still. And then Obama becomes president. He's another absolute coward.
For you goons that are listening, Georgia, not like in the United States, Atlanta, Georgia, the country that Stalin was born in Eastern Europe. There, just FYI. You get, and then never underestimate the stupidity of my audience.
Sure. Oh yeah, same. So Obama becomes president, Russia invades and keeps Crimea, and then Trump crickets, and then Biden becomes president. If you believe that he's actually the president, and Putin invades Ukraine, right? And then somehow that math equals that Trump is a Russian asset. Now you have to I'll have to look at the work on that and see exactly.
Yeah, you have to be academic
goes.
level of intelligent to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Stupid of mental gymnastics.
Yeah. Only Ed Witten can fix that math problem. So it's absolute nonsense, right? So the purpose of the presidency is to project strength and competence. And I'll quote my friend Greg Hurwitz. He's the author of the Nowhere Man series. If you've ever read those, they're great books. How you do anything is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. And if the standard, and look, you will, no matter what you're marching towards, you're going to get there. If you're marching towards nowhere, that's exactly where you're going to get. And the steps you take are defined by your mission statement as a human being. Every company on earth has one. When I was at Black Rifle back in the day, the mission statement was, we serve coffee and culture to people who love America. So, as an employee of the company, no matter what you do and your function, you can say, do my actions right now support that mission? As a member of the military, it's very easy as well. We call it commander's intent in the military. Do my actions reflect commander's intent? Am I actually achieving the goal that I'm supposed to be? And if your intent is to protect the country and make the economy great and make America freer and shrink the size of government and all blah, 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 and all this stuff and improve people's lives and do the stuff that you're actually supposed to do, then you will probably accomplish. Nobody's going to be perfect, but you're going to accomplish a great deal of that. If your goal is to diversify, then you're going to be fucked. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the goal is to make America as European as possible. The goal is very clearly to usher in some sort of global federalism, break down American sovereignty. It's literally the main financier of this regime is Open Borders Society. It says, and then people are like, why is it happening at the border? Well, the number one donor is the guy from Open Borders Society. Yeah. So, they came out with an entire hype video about you will own nothing and be happy. And 4 years later, nobody can afford a house. And people are like, how did this happen? It's like, dude, to their credit, they have not lied about their intentions here. Yeah. They've not lied about what they want. They want to, fundamentally transform the world. They are going to live in a peaceful utopia, no matter how many of us farmers they have to kill to get there.
Yeah. It sounds like Peacemaker, John Cena on Peacemaker. I'm going to make the world a peaceful place, no matter how many men, women, and children I have to kill to make it happen. Right.
Exactly. That's the phrase. Precisely.
But yeah, that's how it works. I mean, we're dealing with levels of gross incompetence. So do you think it's in your opinion, obviously, do you think it's actual ignorance, or do you think that there is a malignancy amongst our leadership? I think there's a cancer in their head. Yeah. They have my personal opinion is I think that America is the last stalwart that stands up against globalism, and they want to take it down. And that's why they're so afraid of Trump, because what globalism is control. That's all it is, right? I mean, sure. It's the Matrix. It's the same story in every dystopian novel you've ever heard, or every trip from a republic to an empire that you've ever heard. Throughout all of human history, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it always happens the same way. People in power grow to love the smell of their own farts, and then fucking, why don't you like it? I mean, I love it. Why don't you like it? Well, you know
just
what?
Don't get it. You're not smart enough. You don't get it.
Yeah, you're a pleb, so I'm going to make you get it now. Yeah. And the thing about the American experiment is it delivered patriotism to a people that hasn't really been seen on this planet since Julius Caesar's legions, in my opinion. Not that, like, I'm not an apologist for Julius Caesar. He did some things I like, some things I don't, but he made his men believe in the cause. You know what I mean? And that's what a great leader does. And when you really believe in something, that's when you're willing to go put your life on the line for it. When you understand that the thing that you are doing it for is more important than your individual self. That's what makes things great. G.K. Chesterton said, G.K. Chesterton used to say that men didn't love Rome because she was great. Rome was great because the men had loved her. And that's right. How it works. So it is, you can see where culture is in the reflection of how men particularly behave, how they treat the flag or the thing, whatever it happens to be, right?
How they allow others to treat it, whether they intervene You know, this world, the last 5 years, man, have really put my libertarian worldview to the absolute test. And I come away from it thinking, man, you know, I cannot be a libertarian as they currently operate because the non-aggression principle to me is nonsensical. We don't get the world we deserve. We get the world we allow. And I think a lot of our current problems could have been avoided if we'd have nipped this in the bud and stopped a lot of this early on. But I think that there was some, you know, there's some amount of that our empathy was weaponized. You know, people took the best part of us and say, hey, man, this is wrong. And we were like, you know what? Okay, let's make it right. And then there's another part of it that's cowardice. The whole idea of cancel culture and all this other stuff, especially in my industry, it's like, oh, you can't say that. You're going to get canceled. Oh, okay, I won't say it then. No, you know, and I've come around obviously on it. I've been probably at the forefront of saying shit I shouldn't say for 3-4 years now. But there was a solid 3-4 years before that where I did cower behind the concept of like, oh, I better not make the masters angry. And I think a lot of people, they took this shot to the ear. But if you look at Twitter yesterday, a lot of people that you would not expect in positions of extreme power, but also vulnerability within the entertainment industry, sports industry, came out and signaled their support for Trump and their love for America. It was like the day everybody came out of the closet. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that all these people who have clearly felt this way for a long time felt empowered yesterday and the day before to come out and say, nah, I fully support Trump. And I hate woke. I hate what's happened. I used to be a leftist. Now I'm on the right. Over and over and over, person after person after person. High profile, Des Bryant, Mitch Robinson on the Knicks, people you wouldn't expect. Why do you think they felt empowered to do that?
People have an innate sense of liberty that they project onto themselves always, right? The thing about liberty, though, is it only exists if it exists for everyone and all the time. Otherwise, it's just some new form of control. Mm-hmm. These people, I think more than the choice itself, individuals get really fucking angry when the choice is taken away from them. Mm-hmm. And regardless of how anybody felt last night or 2 nights ago before this shit happened, they knew there was a choice. I'm going to choose to vote for X or Y, whatever choice they were going to make. And I think that that targeting Trump unlocked something in people. Is like, you know what? They're trying to take my choice away. And then the second light bulb goes off. And with the lawfare, like, oh, they've been trying to take my choice away for some time.
Yeah,
right?
interesting.
And the blinders come off. I think another explanation for a lot of folks is that they were already going to vote for Trump anyways, and this just gave them cover to come out and say it in public, frankly. But I do think I have heard from a lot of people whose minds have legitimately been changed by this action, and nobody said what I just said. Not exactly, but I think that people want a strong leader. You know what I mean? Like you don't want some feckless twat to be in charge of you, especially when it's your wallet and your safety.
Sure.
And it's very obvious, regardless of what anybody thinks, when Trump fucking stood up, the 78-year-old man gets shot through the ear and he stands up and puts his fist in the air and says, fight. That's one of the most poignant moments, I think, in American history right there, which is interesting because a lot of people, there's a lot of recency bias. Everybody's like, oh, this is the most or worst or best thing in history or whatever. It happens a lot. That's just kind of how we've come to communicate these days. And it's usually also
we've lived through it, right? So, I mean, you can talk about, you know, Teddy Roosevelt getting shot in the chest and speaking, but we didn't see it. You know, we can't we can't internalize it the way that we watch that as it happened. You know,
yeah, there's some of that. I don't think the Teddy Roosevelt thing was cool because he survived and did the speech and everything. He did lose though in 1912. So
not only did he lose, but he split the ticket and he brought in Woodrow Wilson and the Federal Reserve and World War I. And I love Teddy Roosevelt, man, but did he screw the pooch on that one, man?
Yeah. I mean, he was a bit of a maverick in that regard. But yeah, I think a lot of people, you know, it used to be the case that people voted with their wallets. If the economy was going good, if the misery index was under 11, typically, which is to say unemployment plus inflation over the course of the 4-year period. So if your unemployment rate was around 4% right then, and combined inflation had been somewhere around 6 to 8% during that presidency, there's a good chance that guy is going to get reelected.
They've been cooking the books for 12 straight quarters. So what is that? What do those numbers even mean anymore?
Well,
anyway? When they go back and 2 weeks later, they're revising the numbers that they came out and said. They just get the spike in the stock market. Everybody sees that. All the numbers are unemployment is negative 15. And and it's like, okay, 2 weeks later. Oh yeah, no. That was actually, it was plus 15. Sorry.
Yeah. And it's, it was kind of trending that direction even before they started really fucking with those stats. People just became tribal again. And I think this is making people less tribal. They just like, when it comes down to survival, a lot of your fringe beliefs go away, right? These things that you're super anal about, you're not so anal about when you got to put food on the table. And speaking of the stock market, nobody is using proceeds from the stock market to put food on their family's tables. Yeah, that's just not happening. So I don't want to hear about that shit from these cocksuckers, man.
Because the people that are cashing out are then immediately going to be like, what the fuck is going on with capital gains taxes? Why did nobody tell me? Like, what do you? So stock market's a cool thing if you can leverage it, and the bank will give you whatever loans you. If you could Robert Kiyosaki a new yacht off of your Nvidia holdings, good for you, man. Absolutely. But to your point, if you're sitting here saying, well, if you just put money in the S&P, you'd be up 500%. And it was like, okay, take it out. And then 35% of that gone. So thanks for playing. But you said something very interesting about the tribalism. And then I know your time's precious, so I want to get you out of here. Thank you so much for coming today, Dan. But the propaganda, one thing that has been seen, you're seeing this a lot on TikTok and a lot on X, is quote unquote former leftists, mostly white women and some black guys who are saying, man, this made me open my eyes. Like, what else have they been lying about? They really are trying to kill this guy. Maybe they have been lying about the lawfare. Maybe the impeachments were bullshit. Like, I look back, and then there was one guy did a whole video, was like, it made me think about everything else. Like I look back about this whole thing about him saying there's very fine people in the KKK, and it turns out that was complete bullshit. That was fabricated. What else have they been lied to about? I guess the question I have for you is twofold. One, why was this propaganda so powerful? Why did it work so well with all these lies and this idea, this demonizing of Trump as Hitler? And then clearly it's fallen apart when people go, wait a minute. I thought this guy was Hitler. Why are we wishing him a speedy recovery? I thought he was Hitler. I thought this was a good thing. They can't have it both ways. They've caught themselves in a Kafka trap by telling everybody this is the worst human being that ever lived. And then one of their guys takes out the worst human being who ever lived. By the way, the guy's 20 years old. If this is the actual shooter, he's 20 years old. That means he was 11 when Trump started running for president. So for half of his life, he's been told by authorities, mainstream media, politicians, this is Hitler. This is the worst human being on earth. This is the very essence of evil. He's going to end the republic. Of course he's going to do something about it. He spent half his life saying this is the devil. He's like, why isn't somebody taking out the devil? I'll do it. How many other guys like him are out there? And then you sit here and how many other people are saying, wait a minute, why are we wishing the devil a speedy recovery? This doesn't jive with what you've been telling me. Why aren't we celebrating this? Holy shit, have you been lying this whole time? Is this guy actually not the devil? Is this not fascism? And I think people's brains, it's like you can see it happening in real time. It's like the force field is starting to melt away and their logic is returning to them. And they're going, wait. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, for as far as why it was effective, just go read Goebbels' The Big Lie theory, right? Which is, by the way, what they have accused Trump of, the big lie, for the entire time he's been involved in politics. That's been a phrase they've used because any way they can, they want to attach him or connect him to Hitler, right?
James Lindsay has a great quote on that. It says
it's the iron law of woke projection. Yeah.
The iron law of woke projection, whatever you're doing. And that does come back to rules for radicals. That's one of Roger Ailes' rules for radicals. Yeah. Accuse the other side of what you're doing. That's one of their rules. So, which
also happens to be it's in old school OSS and CIA manuals as well. Lie, deny, counter accuse. That's the phrase they use.
Is that right?
Now, yeah. Sure is. Now on to the other point about, I guess, it melting away from people's eyes. We're talking about, I mean, people have been writing about this for years, but the most famous version is the Emperor's New Clothes, right? Everybody is so struck by fear or propagandized, or maybe felt like they weren't smart enough to like, how do I know he's not wearing clothes? I'm just a pleb, right? I mean, it's a series of different types of people here. I agree with you. I think that everybody coming out and wishing him a speedy recovery was the one child who walks into the room and be like, hey, you're fucking naked, dude. And everybody's like, oh yeah, shit, he is naked. This whole situation, the attempted assassination of the former and future president, by the way, is the result of years of gaslighting by the Democratic Party, not the far left, the Democratic Party, the DNC.
Sure.
And the words of Joe Biden from 2 weeks ago. So we're done talking about the debate. It's time to put Trump in a bullseye.
Oh, you man, can find, and then they deleted that.
Oh yeah, he tried to. Unfortunately, everybody remembers. And he said today, about an hour ago, I think, he said, "I said bullseye, not crosshair," which is, I mean, why would the fuck?
That's his words. He said that.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
They've led their followers to believe that Trump is a direct threat to democracy, which we don't even have, by the way. There hasn't been a direct democracy on Earth since the Athenians in the 4th century BC, by the way, just to be clear. But they prey on fear and ignorance.
Well, I don't think that's true. Hold on, wait. I think they tried it for like 6 months in the pirate colony down in Nassau, I think.
I don't know about that. That's not
I think so. It didn't go well.
No, but they've preyed on the fear and ignorance of their followers. They've convinced people that even with a 4-year history to draw from, where none of the shit that they're saying is going to happen ever happened, right?
Yeah.
That this time it'll be different. Not only are they in power right now, and they're telling you that once we get into power, we're going to stop this. You're already in fucking power. They're saying the guy who was in power, who didn't do any of the shit they're accusing him of, is going to do it this time. We have to stop him. And they threw everything they had at him. Hillary Clinton used DNC money to pay a foreign intelligence officer to fabricate a dossier linking Trump to salacious behaviors in the Russians. All lies. They said he was a white supremacist because of Charlottesville. All lies. They suggested he tried to overturn the election violently despite evidence on Twitter which banned him, by the way, to the contrary. All lies. They charged him with any frivolous crime they could think of, both civilly and criminally. They convicted him of it. And well, we're not even sure exactly what he's been convicted of. Just so they could call him a convicted felon, they tried everything they could, and he only got stronger. So they sent their henchmen, whether directly or not, to finish the job for good. But even that didn't work. This isn't just a crazy person with a gun. It's a person who was gaslit into violence by the Democratic Party. In the words of Winston Churchill, an appeaser is one who feeds the crocodile, hoping he eats him last. Fuck that, right? This new plea from the left that we need to calm down and cool heads and all this shit.
Drives me out of my mind. Drives me out of my mind.
Fuck you. You caused this. You called it Mao and Hitler. You said that the country won't exist anymore if he wins. And somebody went and tried to kill him because he's leading the polls.
They wouldn't let Sarah Huckabee Sanders eat dinner in D.C.
Yeah.
Do people even remember this when Maxine Waters was sitting there going, harass every Trump supporter. They should feel welcome in your communities.
Yeah. And they tried everything, and even that didn't work. Right. So I
remember being a comedian in New York. Imagine wearing a MAGA hat in New York City 10 years ago. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Are you
so at the end of the day, this was all orchestrated. Everybody's got their own theories about when, why, who, where, how, whatever the fuck.
Please tell me yours.
They took.
Who is the they, first of all?
The aristocratic class in America, the Obamas, the Bushes, so on. All of them. The Clintons.
You think that's the CIA, the FBI?
I think they control those organizations. Yeah.
How deep do you think the rot in our federal government goes?
I think it's as deep as herpes, my man. It's in the root.
There is no rehabilitating this. It's afuera. It has to go.
Get them out. Yep.
Do you think Trump will have the to actually drain the swamp? Do you think he will have the balls now to do it?
Here's let me return the question to you. Trump is leading in the polls by 10 points in Ohio. Why choose JD Vance? What are your thoughts on that?
I personally think it was a mistake. First of all,
that's not what I asked. Why do you think Trump chose him?
Why do I think Trump chose JD Vance? Because I think JD Vance is as far as he was willing to appease the establishment without going Nikki Haley.
I'm not sure I understand. Why would you think JD Vance's establishment?
Well, JD Vance is a senator. He's a freshman senator. I know people think he's a MAGA, but he once called Trump the American Hitler. He's in the intel community on some of the committees that he sits on. He's not a complete outsider the way that Vivek would have been, or he was not a nephew of the establishment the way Tulsi would have been. He's not as bad as Nikki Haley. He's not as bad as Marco Rubio. He's already winning in Ohio, but Ohio, it doesn't matter how many points you're up by. The entire Midwest is proven. It doesn't matter how many points you're up by in Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. It's who counts the votes, not who votes. So, if those machines, everybody thinks this is going to be a cakewalk for Trump. Nothing's changed from a standpoint of who actually counts the votes in 2024. So if anybody actually believes that Joe Biden got 81 million votes in 2020, they're going to be just as gullible to believe that Joe Biden gets 87 million votes in 2024.
Sure. I don't think that'll happen. There is a massive team at the RNC led by my friend Christina Bobb that is already suing the fuck out of states and localities are already for trying to change election rules or trying to do this and that. But we'll see, right? I mean, I don't think that it'll be close enough to rig at this point. I think it's going to be one of the biggest landslides in American history. Probably not like Reagan-Mondale. We just, there are certain states like California and New York that no matter what happened, they're voting Democrat. But to your point about Vance calling Trump the American Hitler, this is and by the way, I'll tell you why I think he's chosen him in a sec, but he is a firebrand. Trump chose the guy that was most like himself.
That's what I thought as well.
And this is Trump saying, this is my fucking party. This is MAGA. This isn't Republican anymore. This is MAGA. It's not neocons. It's none of that bullshit. Times are different now, and you can maybe say that choosing Vivek would have been something like that. Would have done the same thing.
It would either Vivek was a middle finger to Mitch McConnell too.
It's maybe right. Who knows? I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if Vivek is planning on running for Senate to fill that seat or what's going to go on. He has no political experience, so I don't. There's something called seriousness of purpose when you're choosing a candidate that. Not that Vivek's not a serious person, but I think, frankly, I think he could run for Senate in Ohio. He and Vance were classmates back in the day, by the way. So they're good. They're good friends. I think that having a guy who was super critical of you now be your number two is a fucking powerful weapon. That's what I think. I don't think that. I think a guy who has roots in conservatism, but also came up through the system to some degree and needed help from it. Like if you ask a liberal that graduated grad school in the last 15 years, they probably read his book, frankly, right?
Interesting.
And not to say that he speaks to liberalism or anything like that, but rather to say that he's got street cred in a way that I don't think Vivek does. And that's
a very good point. So like he can look somebody in the eye and say, I used to feel exactly how you felt, friend. Let me tell you why I changed my mind.
Exactly. He's Paul. He was Saul. He was walking on the road to Damascus and he woke the fuck up, right? Which is a story that resonates throughout all of human history. So I think that's part of it. And I think the fact that he's both in message and in tone, he's the most like Trump.
JD Vance, the Pope of MAGA.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that's what it is. Trump's putting his foot down and says, hey, I might be 78 years old, but this shit doesn't end with me. Like I'm going to get 4 more years and then we're going to get 8 more after that. That's who knows what's really going to happen, but that's what I think he's trying to do there. And I think it's actually a pretty, I don't know if I would say smart or not smart, but he is doing what leaders do. He's putting his foot, he's establishing the tone like that. We're not fucking taking questions and comments anymore. But on the other side of that, what happened between the assassination attempt and within 24 hours of the assassination attempt, all of a sudden Nikki Haley is invited back to the RNC to speak on. She'll be speaking tomorrow. Some people feel some kind of way about that because she's a neocon war hawk. Fair enough. Here's what's happening. If you take all of this, if Trump sees himself as Caesar, I'm not
coming to kiss the ring.
Yes, he is having somebody come back into the fold to not only bring their followers back, which belong to him. This is how he should think if he's the leader of a party, but also to pledge fealty. Nikki Haley, you come here and you say nice things about me in front of everybody. That's what's happening. And if you think anything else is happening, you don't understand politics. You don't understand history. So that's what's happening. I understand. I don't like her either. I actually really don't get calls from Fox News anymore because I've said some nasty things about her a bunch of times on their show. But I think what he's doing is super smart right now. He's not just trying to win in 24. He's trying to reestablish the Republican Party for the next 2-3 decades.
That's interesting. And do you think this deep state blob, the aristocracy, the ruling class, the globalists, whatever word you want to call them, Illuminati, Bilderberg, it's all the same shit, right? It's all these these rich, powerful people who are conspiring to circumvent the populist having any say in their government and in their life, right?
Yeah.
So
the aristocracy will always protect itself before they'll protect any particular party or ideology or any of that shit.
To your point, the Bushes that you were talking about before, the Bushes and the Cheneys, the Republicans then are now Team Biden now. The neocon of the 2000s is a Democrat today. Bill Kristol is one of the main fundraisers for the Democratic Party all of a sudden. So to your point, they infiltrate. They have no ideology. Their ideology is self-preservation and power.
Well, their ideology is war. Like the easiest way to make money is war. That's just how it is. The easiest way to make money in a society that will continue beyond today is war. I'll say that. Like you can do the Venezuela where you go full retard and extract all the wealth and labor from a population, but you're going to get hyperinflation and then everybody's going to come fucking whack you, right? That's just how it goes. But you can, what's the old saying? You can shear a sheep many times, but you can skin them only once. War is the vehicle through which politicians and aristocracies shear the public. They steal their labor and wealth for decades, hundreds of years at a time, sometimes depending on the society. And that's how they do it. That's how they do it, right? So, Trump tried to take away war from them in the same way that JFK tried to take Vietnam away from them. But they wanted Vietnam. They needed that sweet fucking cheddar. General Dynamics and Raytheon and Boeing and Lockheed Martin, they needed that fucking money. You know what I mean? Daddy needed a new pair of shoes. So JFK, you got to go. Right. Yeah. That's just the way it fucking goes, bud.
So to that point, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'll even amplify what you're saying by there's the NGO, which is another way to shear the public and their labor and wealth. And we need to fight climate change and global pandemics. And we need to be in the World Health Organization. And we have to be in the Paris Accord. And, it's just 250 billion here, 500 billion there. And, if there's another pandemic, you have to give us complete sovereignty over your peoples. So to your point, I agree. And that's these international shadow governments, this elite ruling class you're talking about. Can they be rooted out, defeated? If you believe, well, first of all, I'm going to end with that, but let me go back because I did cut you off. Forgive me. Do you think our deep state, however you want to classify it, was involved in this assassination attempt? Your personal opinion.
I have no idea. Anything I said would be speculation, and that's not helpful.
Speculate.
I wouldn't put anything past them, to be honest. But I'm also not going to say they did it without any evidence. Sure. Now, did they weaken society? Did they weaken the institutions that protect America enough to let it happen? Absolutely. I don't think anybody can debate that. I mean, the left certainly would try, but they wouldn't be able to make that case. Now, on to your other point about can we erode this establishment? Absolutely. We're talking about Vivek as VP. It would have been fun to see him debate Kamala Harris. Jesus Christ, I would have loved that. But I'm going to like watching JD Vance light her up as well. But anyways, here's what I want for Vivek. And I mean this sincerely. I want him to be put in charge of one agency at a time until he fucking reduces them to atoms like Thanos. Walks into the FBI, snaps his fucking fingers, like, you're all fucking fired. Everybody's fired. Get out. Go to the ATF and be like, hey, by the way, the FBI and the ATF were never authorized by Congress. Both of these organizations are fucking done today.
Neither was the federal income tax, I'll have you know.
Correct. Yeah. So just start using the power of the executive branch to eliminate these organizations that shouldn't exist in the first place, whose only purpose has been now to extract wealth from the population and to use civil forfeiture, civil fines, and the threat of imprisonment and death to control them. Fuck every one of them. And I think if there's anybody I want, the Bobs from Office Space to come in, I want Vivek Ramaswamy in charge of that, because he'll sit down in the boardroom like he's done many times with his own companies, look these people in the eye and tell them to go fuck themselves.
What would you say you do here?
Yeah, that would be, and to be honest,
yeah, can we live stream that? Can we live stream that?
Television is struggling right now.
Yeah.
Sell it to HBO. I'll fucking pay for it. I'll pay whatever you want. Put it on Patreon.
Get the Hard Knocks crew in there and have these guys sit there one by one and justify their $150,000 a year jobs when they're surveilling American citizens.
And here's the thing: it's after 1 year of service, because of the federal employee union, it's the FEU. It's like notoriously difficult to fire an employee unless they have some kind of gross cause.
No. Vivek came up with something. Apparently, there's a loophole where as long as it's random, you can fire up to like 70% of the government as long as it's at random. As long as it's like everybody with a name the last name who starts in a consonant. Gone.
Sure, yeah. That's one way to go about it. But you don't want to accidentally get rid of people that are actually good. So the thing that you can do is eliminate the position entirely, right?
If it's so bad though, Dan, is it really throwing the baby out with the bathwater? I get it, but it you got to break an egg to make an omelet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure, yeah.
I'm sure there's IRS agents, but they can reapply for other jobs.
I don't care. We shouldn't. The IRS shouldn't be a thing. The IRS is an armed wing of the federal government who robs people. So fuck them, right? I don't give a shit.
It's accountants with guns. It makes no sense.
Yeah. If every single one of them gets fired, I don't care. Yeah. So, they took what was something great and they did what governments do, what powerful people do. They tried to make it their own it's like a public space. It's like the lake, right? It's beautiful. The water's clean. There's fish. You can put your boat in it or whatever. And it's every single motherfucker's responsibility who shows up there and touches that water or touches the shoreline to take care of it. This is speaking of Teddy Roosevelt, it's something that he said all the time, and it led to leave it better than you found it, which is one of the Boy Scout sayings for a very long time. This is the responsibility of all human beings, America included, right? And it's this thing is to be true. This idea that is America, which is to say the simple belief that personal liberty and individual entrepreneurship are the most effective inoculations to tyrannical bullshit that the human species has ever seen. That is our standard. Everything else we'll fucking debate about. That is our standard. You treat that with respect. And if you don't, then you're not American. And I don't feel compelled to treat you like one either. There are these assholes marching around outside the RNC. I don't give a fuck about Republicans at all. There are people marching around the RNC right now. The first thing I notice is there's not one goddamn American flag in the entire thing. There's Palestinian flags, there's pride flags, there's all kinds of other flags, but not our own goddamn flag. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're out there flying some flag other than ours, fuck you. Like you're not even a person to me anymore. Just fuck off. Go do. I'm not like, don't. And the other part of that is, don't fall victim to getting baited by these assholes into doing something stupid and violent. It's like
there's definitely a point. That's something they're definitely looking for.
They're 100%
their moment of moral high ground as well.
The Democratic Party right now is the drunk guy at the bar who's made an ass of himself, and now he's trying to get you to hit him so he could fucking press charges against you. Don't do it. That's it. Just don't do it. Don't be a fucking idiot.
Now, last thing, Dan, the deep state, right? It's not a domestic thing. This is coming from international. This, whether you believe NATO, UN, IMF, how do we, as just normal everyday American citizens, and I understand that it's, voting and all this other stuff, whether you believe in that or not. How do we insulate ourselves, or how do we help, whether you want to call it MAGA, the populist movement, the whatever's left of a moderate Democrat, the libertarian, liberty-loving people that you were talking about earlier? How do we help this country escape from the claws of this deep state and this international cabal?
Well, the first thing you need to understand is that government power is like Tinkerbell. There's no such thing as the government. It's people, right? It's made up of ordinary citizens for the most part. Understand that government power is like Tinkerbell. It only exists if enough people believe it exists. And once we stop believing in that power, then it goes away. One of the primary ways that the Catholic Church, for example, used to weaken the power of foreign kings over the Holy Roman Empire back in the day was to tell Catholics not to pay fealty or taxes to that king anymore. It's a very effective tool. It's a very effective tool if BlackRock is buying up all these houses, right? And they're depending on a volatile mortgage market that they can either short or that they can buy up all the property on the cheap, right, for cash, so they don't have to deal with the interest rates when everybody else is boxed out because they don't have $1 million or $500,000 in cash to go pay for a house. They want to do that. Okay, cool. Stop paying your mortgage for 6 months.
Yeah.
Get together in your community or state or something like that.
Citizen debt strike, maybe. Now you're talking my language.
Have an absolute tax strike and say, fuck you. Like, this is you're trying to set this market up in a way that benefits you and fucks me over. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to not play your game. Right?
Yeah. And you're leveraged on credit out for the next 16 years. Good luck. We're just not paying in for the next 6 months. We'll see who blinks first.
Yeah. And I'm sure, look, I mean, maybe it hurts your credit rating at some point. 7 years and it'll be over. That seems like a long time, but it's not that long, to be honest. And 7 years of oppression is quite a bit longer than 7 years of a little bit of bad credit, frankly. So I'll deal with it when it comes to that.
But it can't be you alone, right? Like, we got to get other people together. The citizen debt strike, I could not agree with more. I think if we were able to get 1 million people in every state, if we got 50 million Americans together and all at once said, yeah, we're not paying. Not paying back our credit cards, not paying back our mortgages, not paying back our car loans. See, they can put you in jail for not paying your taxes.
Yep.
And taxes, every time you swipe your card, an 8% sales tax is taken. But if you take these people and you take Visa and you take MasterCard, you take BlackRock and you say, yeah, no, there's no money coming in for the next 6 months. Hope you guys are okay. You're going to see changes very, very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you could on most loans, whether it's a car, house, or revolving credit, you can go somewhere between 3 and 6 months without making a payment, and not get really negatively damaged on your credit. Frankly, it's 3 months. 3 months is the low side. So you can definitely go 2.5 months without paying anything.
Now, if we really wanted to get crazy, what if everybody took out as many personal loans as they possibly could? 25%, 30%. Who gives a shit? You're never going to pay them back. Take out as much of their money as they will give you, put it into digital currency, keep trading with each other through digital currency, and cut them out of it fucking completely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's something to think about, isn't it? Because I can go. I was in the Army. I've had bad credit before. Shit, I can deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't buy a fucking Dodge Charger for 35% interest or any dumb shit like that. But I was a kid. I did dumb shit like anybody else. I can deal with a
stripper at 18, so you get your own barrack.
Yeah, no, I did. I've dealt with bad credit before, and you know what? My day-to-day life didn't make a fucking difference. But what they can't deal with not getting that money in, though. They can't deal with it because the first thing they do is start firing employees. The second thing they do is start trying to leverage liens against your property and stuff like that. Well, guess what? Oh boy, I'm not paying that one either. So good fucking luck.
They don't have enough. They don't have enough people to get you out of there. They don't have. They just don't have the people.
Yeah. When the tent dries up, then people become a lot more willing to negotiate. And
this is what the wealthy does. The wealthy declare bankruptcy, even though they've got billions of dollars, and they say, "Well, why are you declaring bankruptcy? I don't like the terms of our agreement. Let's restructure. I'm not making another payment until we restructure our agreement." Yeah. And we, as the American populace, this is what we should do. The citizen debt strike is absolutely what we should do. 100%. I couldn't agree more.
That's certainly that's half of the equation. The other half is to get involved in local politics, and start the process of nullification. Take over your city, take over your county, take over your state. Some states, you're already pretty good. Florida's pretty good. I think 70% of the legislature there is Republican. So you can do more or less whatever you want there if you really put your mind to it. You know what I mean? And
what do you think of the politics of pain, though, Dan? What do you think of that? I call it the politics of pain. We saw it in New Jersey during COVID, where there are incentives for places like California, places like New Jersey, places like New York, places like Michigan, where the worse they make it for people, the more people will leave. And the people who stay are the people on the government tit, like you're looking, right? So I believe, Phil Murphy won by 100,000 votes in his last election in Jersey, but over 400,000 people had left in his 4 years for Florida, people like me. So by making it bad on his constituents and us leaving, It actually empowers them. So do you see kind of a further bifurcation of this country? Do you think that's going to continue to happen?
Maybe. I don't really care, to be honest. If New Jersey and New York go bankrupt, I don't give a fuck, frankly. Because that's what's going to happen. If you drive your tax base out, you're done. You're absolutely done. And to be honest, don't be shocked if Trump wins New Jersey this year. I wouldn't be shocked by that. A lot of people are starting to wake up. Anyways, I want to get back to the other point I was making. The second part of that, when you take local control of government, you can start this process called nullification. It's kind of what led to the Civil War, right? But
talking about like Missouri says they will never do any gun laws, no federal gun laws.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. That's one of them. And by the way, the Attorney General of Missouri, Andrew Bailey, is a good buddy of mine. He's all these lawsuits you're seeing. This Trump Jack Smith case getting dismissed earlier today. That's partly him.
Oh wow.
The Chevron case, partly him. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. He's filed lawsuits against the federal government. Like they're doing like one a week right now. At any rate, this is nullification. You're going to remember it from living in the Northeast. There are two major issues in the late 90s, early 2000s, where for the first time since the Civil War, nullification began in America. It was weed and gay marriage, right? California and New Hampshire and Massachusetts said, you know what? I don't really give a fuck what the federal government has to say about this. We're going to sell weed and we're going to fucking let gay dudes bang each other or whatever. And what happened? Not a goddamn thing happened. And it betrayed a lack of power that the federal government actually has, which is written into our Constitution. It's federalism, right? The 9th and 10th Amendment to the Constitution return any power not explicitly outlined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the amendments back to the states, which is why Roe got sent back to the states and so on. So,
you make a great point. Andrew Cuomo has even tried to rehabilitate his image by saying, I couldn't make laws. All I could do is make suggestions. And the people had to do, I didn't have any jurisdiction to enforce mask mandates, he says,
sure. Yeah.
While he 100% did. But to your point, if the people had gotten together and there was a town in Jersey that said, we're not following the mask mandates, that's nullification, then they would have jurisdiction over that?
Sure. Yeah.
That's your understanding of it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, nullification works from the bottom up, right? It's a subject of the larger organization saying no and doing so collectively amongst the voice of the people. So think about it this way. There are donor states and there are welfare states. Donor states are ones that contribute more to the federal economy than they take out of it. And welfare states are obviously the opposite of that. Donor states stop sending money to the federal government. What's going to happen? You know what I mean? It's a very good question to ask. What does the federal government try to start a war because of a tax strike? That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I don't think they want to get that smoke here in Texas because the Texas military is the size of the United States military. So good luck with that. And also don't expect all of your guys to fucking fight on your side. Now, I don't want any of this stuff. I want leftists to get the fuck out of my country, frankly.
Yeah.
Or join the party. We're America. This is America. Keep all
here's
that
the
fucking
thing.
socialist bullshit back in the past where it got proven to be wrong, right? Just leave that
Garbage.
shit in the past. Join us. Anybody, like over the past couple of days, so many people, like you said, you alluded to earlier, so many people have been like, you know what? I've been lied to. Fuck this. I'm not playing this game anymore. To me, that person is like, if I was religious, that would be a newfound convert.
Yeah, it's a born again.
Hey, welcome in, brother. Like,
I agree with you. I think there's definitely that aspect of, and then maybe this is a good thing. You had your chance. All you crazy leftist nerds, you blue-haired commie honkies, you greedy blacktivists, you Roy G. Bibb attention seekers. We gave you 5 years, and you made it worse for everybody. You have no argument anymore. You've had 5 years, 8 years, really, right? You got 2 years of having the House and the Senate under Trump. So at the very least, you got 6 years to do something with all the power that you have in this country, and you've made it worse for everybody except yourselves. So now I think for the rest of us, the empathy meter's dry. enough. Go sit in the corner, think about what you did, and the adults are going to fucking take over so that groceries aren't $200 a goddamn bag. So flights aren't $500 one way. So it's not $4 a gallon when you know, like, so the planes aren't falling out of the air and the border's not a sieve. Enough is enough. You had your chance and you blew it. Right. I mean, there's just nothing about this administration. They brag, and in some ways, it's the worst way possible because there's nothing better than organic diversity. All the jokes we're talking about diversity, but there's nothing worse than patronizing diversity quotas. And you're sitting here telling us this is the most diverse administration in history. There's more women and more people of color and more gay people than any administration ever. And then people are sitting here going, well, I can't afford a house or fucking groceries. So what does that say? What are you actually saying right now? Yeah. You're not making the point you think you're making. This might have been something to celebrate 4 years ago, but 4 years later, I don't care that your staff members are butt fucking on Congress floor, which they are on camera. I care that groceries are unaffordable. Do something for us. Do your job. Yeah. And that, I think, people's patience is done with. Yeah.
I mean, all of the fringe ideology goes away when it's about survival. And mothers. Now, I think the biggest swing vote in America isn't black people or Latinos, like new immigrants or any of that shit. It's women.
Yeah, always.
Women. The rate of voting amongst women is way higher than men, and they vote based on how they can take care of their families for the most part. That's
a lot of their pussy husbands vote the way their wives want them to anyway. So a lot of them get 2 votes.
Yeah. And I'll say this, there's a third way that you get involved, and that's to actually get out and vote. If you think that your vote doesn't matter or it's all rigged, so you're not going to go to the ballot box, then you're a piece of shit. Get your fucking shit together and grab a couple of buddies and go to the ballot box and fucking vote. Don't make it easy for them to win by cheating. If it's close enough, they're going to try to cheat. If he blows them out, there's no way they can do it.
If you don't think your vote matters, find out that you've been voting Democrat for the last 6 elections and see whether or not the person ballot harvesting on your behalf thinks your vote matters.
In particular, right now,
your vote's going to matter when you're dead. I promise you that.
No, well, especially if you're in Chicago. I'm talking to primarily right now. I'm talking to hunters and veterans. There are just under 10 million hunters rather nationwide who are of legal age 18, not felons, have a hunting license, but are not even registered to vote, much less vote at all.
Get out of here.
That's
you
true,
would think that's a crazy voting demographic.
Only 63% of veterans are registered to vote, and only 28% of them actually vote.
Wow.
I don't want to hear you whining about how fucked up the VA is and how nobody cares about veterans anymore. If you don't care enough about your fucking self to go represent yourself at the ballot box, shut the fuck up with all the goddamn conspiratorial bullshit. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. You still got to fucking go fight. Right. Just because the game's not fair doesn't mean you don't go whip that guy's ass. Like, let him fucking think he's won. Let him think he's won and then show up and punch him in his fucking mouth.
Yeah. Amen. That's fantastic. Dan, where can people find you, man? Where do you want them to check you out? What would you like them to see?
I'm on social media at Dan Hollaway, Hollaway. You might have to type the whole thing in because I say some pretty rowdy shit.
Yeah, you've been shadow banned. I've been shadow banned. You've been shadow banned.
Yeah, it happens. And then check out Drinking Bros. If you like comedy and politics, we talk about buttholes a lot.
And sports.
And sports, yeah. And if you like more like, I guess, philosophy about politics and culture and stuff like that, my show Citizen, that's kind of what we talk about over there.
Citizen's fantastic. Also, Hard AF is fantastic as well, guys.
It is delicious.
The great Dan Hollaway from the Drinking Bros podcast. Cannot thank you enough for your time, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate your insight on all this. Guys, check out Drinking Bros and Dan Hollaway, and check out telyrx.com. That's TELYRX.com for all of your telehealth needs. Who goes to a doctor anymore? You're going to go to the doctor, show them the bumps, then you got to go to the pharmacy, get that look from that condescending person behind the desk and pay for it. Crazy. Go to telyrx.com, type in your symptoms, You'll speak with a doctor right there, and they will have your prescription mailed to your door. And if you use the code SNT, you're going to get 20% off. Everybody, appreciate you. This is Gerard versus Evil. I'm Gerard Michaels. That's Christian Perello and Skylar Kelly over in the producer booth. We will see you when I get back from Oklahoma. Peace.